Greetings, this is Top Hat and Buttered Popcorn. My name is John Savers. I'm your host, and today we'll take a look at a couple of recent films, beginning with Seabiscuit. This is a 2003 release, actually, which I encountered on Netflix, and this is a Netflix review. The film was directed and written by Gary Ross from a Laura Hillenbrand book. The music was provided by Randy Newman, and the photography under John Schwartzman. There was a good deal of narration in this film and pictures of the times and montage and snapshots. And this narrator was David McCullough. The film stars Jeff Bridges as Charles Howard. His first wife, Valerie Mahaffey, Annie, and the second wife was Marcella, who is played by Elizabeth Banks, who looked a little bit like Liv Tyler. At any rate, William H. Macy appears as Tick-Tock McLaughlin, and Eddie Jones plays Mr. Riddle, sort of the villain of the film, and Tobey Maguire played John Pollard, Red Pollard, the adult version, and Chris Cooper played Tom Smith, the trainer. This is a story that's relatively simple. The main storyline based on Seabiscuit, I think that we should credit this as a horse tale. But the horse has become something of a symbol or emblem of the little man. And we see put forward the notion that the people who suffered during the Depression found their spirits lifted and their hopes enkindled by the daring do, so to speak, the life and times of Seabiscuit, the racehorse. Hard to believe, but at any rate, this is a fundamental proposition in this film. And it's inescapable. We also have classism introduced in the form of Mr. Riddle, who is a man given to talk about genes and good genes and so forth like this, and parentage, and he comes across as an elite capitalist, horsey sort. Seabiscuit, on the other hand, is carefully presented as a horse who is neither the normal horse hero nor one who has the sterling qualities that one normally associates with a victorious horse, such as War Admiral and Man of War and so forth. But we also learned that, in point of fact, Seabiscuit was sired by Man of War off of hardtack, and therefore it would seem to have pretty good genes. So it seems to me there's a little bit of dissembling here. Nevertheless, we're told that Seabiscuit is a small horse, the little guy. He also has a wheeze, and one of his legs seems to be a little gimpy, or has periodic problems of this sort. So we have this horse who is apparently unlikely. Then we see that this horse has been mistreated because of its appearance, apparently. And because people were prejudiced against a horse that appeared as Seabiscuit appeared. So that the horse was trained to lose, and it had gone from a horse in its youth that was gentle, that loved to sleep and spent quite a lot of time sleeping, and when not sleeping, loved to eat and ate much more than the usual horse. And they all like to eat. Now, let me tell you this. This particular horse becomes a personality change under mistraining. It becomes unruly, and it therefore needs just the right kind of person to handle it if it's going to succeed at all. Enter Tom Smith. Now, we meet Tom Smith early in the film as a cowboy riding in kind of big sky country, chasing down some wild horses, lassoing one. And periodically we will meet him. He has difficulties in terms of making a living, apparently. We see him at one point riding a railroad car as a hobo with some other men. And we see him camping out. He does not seem to have any fixed address. His orientation is completely toward horses, and he kind of prides himself in his perception of horses and how to deal with them. In Tom Smith, we have the introduction of the intuitive man, the man who makes judgments about others, whether horse or human, on the basis of feel. And when he sees Seabiscuit, he sees, if you'll excuse the expression, the eye of the tiger in Seabiscuit. They meet it's 5 a.m. in the morning with Seabiscuit coming out of thick clouds in the Sarasota area of New York. And wow, Tom Smith is just taken with it. The horse has a sort of a chip on the shoulder, and as it goes by, Tom Smith, he sort of looks at him like, "What are you looking at?" Tom Smith is impressed. Now, he has occasion at Sarasota to see also the unruliness of the horse with 2 or 3 handlers having a hard time managing it. One jockey they select to ride it couldn't handle. I said, "That horse is crazy, forget about it." Tom Trainer is kind of looking for the right horseman, the right jockey. He sees a red pollard kind of fighting at the same time that the horse is fighting with the handlers. He's fighting with 3 or 4 guys in the area of the stables, and something clicks here. Tom sees red pollard as something of the same spirit as Seabiscuit, and thinks that he would make the perfect jockey because he and Seabiscuit are spiritually one. This particular film opens up with a discussion by the narrator of Henry Ford's Model T, the horseless carriage, and we see the advancement of Jeff Bridges' character, Charles Howard, from the East Coast, working in an assembly area, I presume, on spokes, to a guy in San Francisco with his own shop who has the opportunity to work on a Stanley steamer and who does such a good job, impresses the owner, who is somebody apparently connected, that it opens doors for Charles. And he advances rather rapidly with a natural intelligence and ambition and insight and stuff of that sort that can be parlayed in that time to a great advantage. He does apparently make quite a lot of money. We do at one point see him in a Buick retail outlet talking to a customer that he wouldn't give $5 for any horse in the best horse in the country. This was the time for the horseless carriage, not for horses. But his viewpoint changes a little bit. He is married. He does have a son. And on a trip, he has a terrible experience of finding out that his son has been killed in an automobile accident. The boy is only about 12 or 13, but he has been taught by his father to fish and to drive the truck, and was doing so on kind of a winding country road, narrow and so forth, when a truck happened to come at the same time. He kind of loses control and goes over the side and is killed. This is pretty devastating for the Howard marriage. Annie can't take it. She eventually packs off and leaves. Charles Howard more or less shuts down his estate in which he had kept in the stables not horses, but his favorite racing cars, his horseless racing cars. We do find all these main characters sort of getting together south of the border. We do hear again through narration about Prohibition and how that had affected the growth of certain towns along the border with California and the United States, generally speaking, including Tijuana. We see that a wealthy individual has invited Charles Howard down there to kind of cheer him up, take his mind off of the tragedy in his life and so forth. He is also, you get the impression, sort of healing a little bit via time anyhow. But he does, he sees children playing out there, little boys and stuff like this and whatnot, and maybe he's getting a little bit ready, possibly, to try marriage again. At any rate, we see him at a racetrack, Agua Caliente, and there the celebrity jockey, so to speak, George Wolfe, is riding. He comes up in a cream-colored convertible and has similar clothing and suit and quite a splash. He does race, and Tobey Maguire's character, Red Pollard, is also racing. And they have kind of struck up something of a little friendship. And Maguire has got a kind of a reputation, his character, with the other jockeys because of his tales. As he spins them, he has read the books his father had given him when they departed. His father, originally from Alberta, Canada, had, as with many, lost everything in the Depression. He knew his son, John Pollard, had a gift with horses. He at one point was going to buy him did buy him a show horse. But after the hard times of the Depression, he did have the opportunity for his boy to take up racing with a guy who could provide him a house and stuff like this. And these were things that he and his wife could not do, and they gave him a kind of a farewell and kind of a bag full of the books and everything that was important to Mr. Pollard, who is played by Michael O'Neill. At any rate, the boy did do quite a lot of reading. He did all the way. We see him as somebody who has been reading Dickens and so forth. So he has been able to take the stories that he has seen, the adventures and all that, and to elaborate this into tales in which he was the star and to entertain other jockeys this way and so forth. He did, however, get a particularly close friendship, it appears, with George Wolfe. The character Marcella also enters, that's the Elizabeth Bank character, who is a pretty Mexican woman or Hispanic woman, Spanish woman, who has spied Charles Howard at the racetrack, kind of wondered who he was, thought, well, maybe he's down here for a quickie divorce, and she likes the way he looks, thinks he's prospective. They do get together and eventually get married, and we do get a shot. We see Red Pollard as trying to kind of add to his income by fist fighting, and we see this a number of times, and in one fight he has his eye injured, his right eye. And in Tijuana, in a situation in which he is telling his tales to a woman there who he is paid to be there, she stands up at last to make herself more comfortable. And we get a shot of what Red Pollard is seeing, and the whole right side is blacked out. He can't see through that eye at all. Well, that's not actually the way vision works so much, but at any rate, by this means it's demonstrated that he does have this vision problem. It can't be good for a jockey. But at any rate, he has tenacity and determination and fire, as they say. The group kind of gets together in Saratoga, and it's there that Charles Howard takes his wife and Tom Smith, and kind of looking for a horse, and that's when they run into Seabiscuit. Seabiscuit is indeed purchased by the Howards. They're taken back to California, apparently. And he's groomed and becomes victorious. The first race was a loss because of Red Pollard being fouled, and he loses his cool and chases after the jockey and stuff like this. After the race, Tom Smith, what were you thinking? And Charles Howard, why are you so angry, son? Anyway, the impression is made on Red Pollard that there's more at stake here than his personal sense of being dissed. He may keep a chip on his shoulder to a certain extent, but he has got to let certain things slide at certain times. Anyway, he and Seabiscuit get along pretty well. They ride well together. They naturals and so forth. The success of Seabiscuit is at the very same time that on the east, a great horse is also having great success. That's War Admiral. It's a big horse, good breeding, good genes, as the owner, Mr. Riddle, pointed out. And just in a class by himself. He's run all the big ones, Kentucky Derby, Preakness, and so forth, Pimlico, whatever. He's won the big races. An offer by Charles Howard to have a head-to-head a race for $100,000 is given. This is kind of like a prefigurement of the race, I guess, between Swaps and Nashua. But at any rate, in this particular case, the California horse comes out better. It just so happens during this whole setup to get this going that Red Pollard breaks his leg in an accident. It's pretty serious, and he's in a cast. He can't ride Seabiscuit. His pal, George Wolfe, comes in to do it. And does so successfully. He listens to the advice of Red Pollard and the advice of Tom Smith, and Seabiscuit responds accordingly. So it does bring a great victory for Seabiscuit over War Admiral. And by means of narration, we're given to understand that this victory, this little guy against the biggie, against the name, against the invincible genes of War Admiral, it kind of stoked the possibilities in the American population, the down and out, the little guy who sees in Seabiscuit the possibility of his own overcoming and defeating the capitalist pigs represented by Mr. Riddle and War Admiral. Poor War Admiral, to have all this kind of thrown on him. He's just a horse. He doesn't have any notions about being better than Seabiscuit or anything of that kind. Nevertheless, he's kind of cast in the bad light because of Mr. Riddle, and Seabiscuit because of his being a little horse and all that, and difficulties and whatnot, being perceived as the people's horse. There is, after this victory, a kind of return to California. We do have Seabiscuit injuring a leg. It looks serious enough maybe to put the horse to sleep, but this is not done, and Tom Smith tries to get the horse back, at least hobbling along. No one expected a miracle. But dadgum, something of a miracle did happen, because Seabiscuit began to walk again, run again, canter, and so forth. Before you know it, he was running with the same speed he used to have. Well, hard to figure. This is not, however, the case with Red Pollard. His leg is really bad, and after he gets out of the cast, he's still kind of hobbling around and so forth. But he wants to race the recuperated Seabiscuit. There is a clear parallel here between Red Pollard and his injury and Seabiscuit's injury. So a kind of protection was rigged up for the injured leg of Red Pollard. He gets on to the Seabiscuit, and he does bring the horse to victory. So it does look like it all ends on a promising note, and again we get the narration about how Seabiscuit, how we didn't teach Seabiscuit anything, Seabiscuit taught us. And again we get the tie into the Depression and being that kind of spark to lift the people out. Far-fetched. But I will also mention that there are certain scenes in this film worth recounting, and one is early in the film, Red Pollard is racing against a guy who's trying to dislodge him, trying to beat him with a... It looked like Ben-Hur, and it was a pretty amusing scene. So anyway, overall, I thought that this was an amusing, certainly a safe for the family, and basically diverting kind of film. Although the story was a little dishonest in its overreaching. Well, that's it, folks. A wrap. We're out of time again. This is Top Hat and Buttered Popcorn. My name is John Savers. I'm your host. I do appreciate your tuning in, and I hope to see you again at our next Top Hat and Buttered Popcorn.